Welcome to the UCLA Anderson Drive Time Podcast. My name is Dylan Stafford. I'm an assistant dean here at UCLA Anderson, and I am your host today. I have a really wonderful guest. Theo Lee is a graduate from the class of 2017, and he's going to tell a great entrepreneurial story today. He is the CEO and co-founder of K-Pop Foods, which he co-founded and created while he was a student here at UCLA Anderson. And it's an exciting story, and I hope that you as a listener today will get some insight to the entrepreneurship pathways and possibilities that UCLA Anderson has to offer, a little bit about how bold you got to be, kind of willing to take a risk. So I think this is going to be a wonderful interview. So Theo, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and be back at Anderson.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. And I forgot to say you're a double Bruin also.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
So you went to UCLA Economics, your first degree, and went off and did some iBanking for a few years and then made your way back to business school. And I think that's probably going to be part of the story people are interested in. So why don't we start with kind of introduce your journey and where you were before business school.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as you said, I graduated from UCLA undergrad in 2011 and took my first job in banking. Was working over at One West Bank, which was the recovered bank from IndyMac. Stephen Mnuchin was the chairman, who's now our Secretary of Treasury. But I really hit the ground hard, learned a ton my first 2 years. And I was in LA as sort of a general analyst, and then had an opportunity to go work in the energy side out in Dallas. Definitely a unique move. I don't think a lot of people leave LA to go to Texas, but something I wanted to do. So made that move out there. And after 2 years out in Dallas, I learned a ton, great team out there, but I kind of always knew I wanted to go to business school, and I think it was really just to sort of learn all the other skills to eventually start my own company. I wasn't sure when I was going to start my company or what it was going to be in, but I knew I wanted to get that experience, learn a little bit about marketing, operations, sort of the things I never really saw from the banking side. And so when I was applying to schools, obviously UCLA was one of my top ones.
Well, I would hope so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Come back to your alma mater, but you have choices.
Exactly. And when I came to visit the school, I just fell in love with it. I saw what was happening with the entrepreneurial side of things. I had 2 or 3 friends that were in the classes already, and so they were the ones that really told me all about the culture, what it was like on a day-to-day basis. And I think for me, talking to them really helped out a lot in making my final decision to come back to Anderson. So yeah, I went for it, came in 2015 as part of the class of 2017. Ended up working at, finding a job at a startup working in finance, and that's sort of when everything started happening.
Now, let me back up just a tad before we get into so having gone to UCLA as an undergrad, did you have much overlap with Anderson, or was it sort of like off on the side of campus?
Yeah, you know what? To be honest, actually, it's funny. When I started taking my upper div classes, so junior and senior year, you do overlap a couple of times with some of the MBA students. And at that time, I was a young kid. I was like, why would I ever want to go to business school? Like, no, once I'm out of school, I never want to take another midterm or test or do any of that ever again. But, I'm really glad I did. It was a totally different learning experience from undergrad to business school. I think it's a lot more practical. Things move a lot faster, and the community and people you meet with in business school were just absolutely amazing. So I really enjoyed it and glad I came.
Well, I hear that a lot, like the difference, because our most represented prior university in all of our programs, full-time, executive, fully employed, is always UCLA. Yeah. So, but the idea is, go see the world for a few years and then come back to your MBA, because you get to cross-reference like what it was like in Dallas, what it was like, out of the bubble of academia, and it makes the MBA richer. So that's just a plug for everybody. If you're still an undergrad, go work for a couple years, then come back.
Yeah.
So did you have entrepreneurial role models? I mean, you had a couple friends who were in Anderson already, but you're working for iBanking. You could make a career there. What was giving you the kind of curiosity about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it really stems from my dad. My dad and I were very close, and so his background, he went to Cornell University, started working as an engineer actually in oil and gas and power, but quickly jumped over to another startup. And the way that the company is called AES, obviously a big, for those that don't know, they're a competitor to Enron. back in the day before everything, sort of fell apart. But it was really him that instilled that entrepreneurial spirit of doing things on your own, like growing something from almost nothing, because he joined the company, like he was probably one of the top first 10 employees.
Oh, wow. Okay,
right?
so he saw it.
He saw the whole
ground up.
thing from building the culture, building how things should operate. And I think that's really what instilled that big bug into me. And to be honest, I came to business school knowing that I wanted to eventually become an entrepreneur and run my own thing, but I was like, I'm not ready for that at all. And so when I first came, I was really heavily looking at startups. And at that time, LA, back in 15 and today, LA's startup community is just massive. And that was something that I really valued at UCLA Anderson's got such a great name that, when I was making my move over here, I was just pinging a couple people on LinkedIn, internships.com or whatever. Hey, my name's Theo. I'm going to be incoming to Anderson. Interested in learning more about your startup and see if you have any open internships or something like that. And you'd be amazed at the amount of responses, coming back to me. I don't know, maybe it was like the banking or whatever, but I definitely think Anderson's name got me, to that step and having conversations, and eventually got me my first internship. So.
Well, I love it. Well, so let's jump right into the while you were here, because what I love, and I really appreciate Trish and Will connecting me with you, because what I love about your story is the proactive nature of it.
Yeah.
And if part of my commitment is that people don't just, get the baseline Anderson takeaway, because that's sort of like, that's not the goal. We're just like any other modern organization. We want to exceed expectations. And my best counsel that I can ever offer anyone is, you need a certain amount of proactivity to really make Anderson uniquely customized for yourself, because there's so much going on here. If you don't have a little hustle factor, I think it could be overwhelming for people.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I'd love to kind of let people in on your, like you said, you're pinging people, and you're being very modest and humble, and I appreciate that. But maybe it was a little bit Anderson, maybe it's a little bit Theo, maybe it's 1/3 Anderson, 1/3 Theo, and 1/3 you're just being proactive. So, kind of talk to us, because what did you do when you arrived? How did you know where to start? A little bit towards even meeting your co-founder. So
yeah, absolutely. So when I first got to Anderson, as I think a lot of when you're first coming into a new environment, and I mean, thankfully I'd been to UCLA, so I kind of knew the basics. But it's definitely overwhelming in the beginning. You're kind of like, whoa, there's you got to think about your career, what classes, what track you want to be on. You're also trying to socialize and meet all these people, and I remember talking to a lot of people about, hey, you started K-pop Foods at Anderson. Was that always, like, from day one, that was your dream? And to be quite honest, it wasn't. When I first got to Anderson, I really did want to experience everything, especially my classmates, to the fullest, because I thought that was probably one of the most unique things, was the culture at Anderson, and how you can build networks and meet everyone. And with the class size of about 360 in the full-time program, it's definitely something you can do that I don't think you can do at some of the larger schools. Yeah,
1 out of 900, some of those, yeah.
Exactly. And that's really, my first 2 quarters that's where I spent a lot of my time, socializing. I was a social chair, so I served on the executive board as a social chair with Shell and Alan. But what that did was it allowed me to, meet a ton of different people. And when this is how I definitely met Mike. Mike Kim, my co-founder, him and I were in the same section, thankfully, both Korean Americans, but we really didn't start talking about K-pop Foods until probably early winter quarters, so January of 16. And it all started because we were out in Koreatown having Korean barbecue with a bunch of different friends and classmates. And it was at that point when, a bunch of our friends said, hey, we love this. Like, is there anything we can get like this on the west side? Because LA traffic. It takes
it takes a while to get to the good Korean food. It's a pilgrimage, right?
And that's really what sparked it for Mike and I. We were seeing how much our friends were loving it, how much Koreatown and LA had grown, how much Korean food and culture had grown thanks to K-pop music, Roy Choi, Anthony Bourdain, these celebrity chefs that were bringing light to Korean food. We started thinking like, hey, what are the big Korean food brands, right? You've got Heinz, you've got Kellogg for everything else. What about in Korean food? And that's when it kind of hit Mike and I, like, hey, there might be an opportunity here.
Nice.
And, in the beginning, when I think I first got to business school, people, when you have your own ideas, you're kind of like, oh, I don't know, like, I'm a little scared to tell you about it. You don't know how people are going to react. And, Mike and I had developed so many relationships with friends and our classmates we were happy to share our ideas on it and take feedback and criticism and think about different things. And it turned out, people ended up connecting us to other people that helped us out a ton on branding, marketing, even the food science side. And that's really, the benefit of, being at UCLA Anderson was this community had quickly developed around K-pop foods, and we hadn't even done anything yet.
Wow.
And, we were making bottles at night in our kitchen, playing around with it was my grandma's recipe was our first sauce.
Okay, so you did have the seed of a product.
Yes,
okay.
exactly. She used to send it to me when I was an undergrad.
Nice.
Right? And you remember,
that's so cool.
right? In undergrad, you're kind of like just eating chicken and eggs. And so anything with some flavor on it was amazing, especially on a budget. And so that's, I knew I was like, all right, this stuff worked with all my friends back then. I'm sure it'll, work now. We might need to tweak it. So thankfully, I convinced my grandma to give me the recipe. And, Mike
was this a family secret or was
it was her secret. She'd been using it for a while. And, my mom had played around with it and things like that. And so, I was able to convince her to give me the recipe.
Wow.
And Mike and I would spend nights in the kitchen with the rest of our team, like making samples, tweaking things here and there. And, the big savior was we were able to find these like little bento box piglet containers, sauce containers on Amazon that were super cheap. So we would just spend nights filling up hundreds of these things and then come to Anderson and just give them out to everyone, get feedback. And people started telling us, oh, like my friend would love to try this. Can you ship it in the U.S. mail out to him? We'd be, yeah, we can figure that out. And
just
so,
say yes and figure it out afterwards.
And so we would put, 2 piglets into this envelope and put a stamp on it, send them all out. And, some of them did come back. And so we were like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, we're working on getting it back out to you. But it was, like you said, it was those little things that we were just hustling. But, we had a ton of help from so many people that it was a really fun time for us. And we had no idea what we were doing, to be honest. Like, we were just running like crazy. But thankfully, we had so many people helping guide us and put us in the right direction through Anderson that it all sort of came together.
Wow. Okay, this is so fun. I love it. I love it. Taking grandma's recipe to the to your classmates to start with, and then when did it and how did it start to become, I would say, real? Because I mean, I want to tell people you've had sort of 3 financial events, right? And that's cool because you've actually used different pathways. And like, and did you do the startup? Did you do the startup internship?
Yeah, so my first year I did take that internship.
Okay, so that was summer after your first year?
Yeah, so I actually ended interning the summer before I started at Anderson as a manager of finance.
Oh.
Stayed on my whole first year, and I thought that was very invaluable to be taking the classes in entrepreneurship at Anderson and then also experiencing it firsthand at this startup. We were a pre-seed tech startup. During that summer I was there, we were able to raise a $2.8 million initial seed round. But by doing that, I was able to learn a lot about my own theories of how quickly a startup should move.
Okay.
How perfect, how precise, how things should operate, where to prioritize, what, things you need to build up first. And I think I built up a lot of that knowledge just going through the startup I was at and tying that with everything from Anderson. And I think that really gave me the confidence to, hey, like with K-pop foods, that's where we push forward. And things started to become real, as part of the BCO program, or Business Creation Opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, BCO. All of our jargon, the Business Creation Option, yeah.
Yep, that was part of our senior thesis. And so we were able to get K-pop foods through with our team. And things got real that first quarter, well, actually, when we launched on Kickstarter.
Okay.
We wanted to find a way during the BCO process to actually operate and launch this company and see, how much can we de-risk this thing before committing our whole lives to it following graduation. And we were like, well, let's just launch the company. We were looking for a way to really make a big splash on the PR and marketing side. We're like, Kickstarter looks like a great route that we could take. We had done the numbers, found everything during the BCO process of finding a manufacturer, finding suppliers, getting the website up. And so we, said, okay, we're going to launch in April. And I think
this is April of your second year?
Yeah, April of my second year, during the BCO time period. And, I remember the day that we were about to launch that morning. It was like April 24th. That morning, I was like, man, like this is crazy, right? Because, all of our work that we've done for the last, 6 months is all coming to this, and we could just flop. And I'm like, man, this would be terrible if we flop. But, the really onus came to the Anderson classmates, because we launched on Kickstarter. We knew that for us to make it, our goal was 10,000. We needed to have sort of a network effect or viral effect to get there, because we didn't have enough money for a PR team or PR campaign or anything like that. We threw a small launch party in the Anderson Accelerator. I think about 80 people came down to it. And when we launched, thanks to all of our friends, they were sharing our campaign on Instagram, on Facebook, on anything they had. We ended up hitting our goal of $10,000 in under 8 hours.
Nice.
And so the next morning when we come to campus, it was like, people were talking about us and we're like, I can't believe this happened. But it was all thanks to them, because they were sharing it. And when you had like 200 shares on Facebook, the thing kind of just takes a life of its own. And later Kickstarter named us a project of the day, and that's when things really made, like, we were like, oh, this is like a real company now. Like, and again, we ended up raising $40,000 from 1,200 backers.
1,200, right. Yeah. So you used Anderson, like, influencer amplifier leverage.
Yeah, exactly. And people were involved. We took so many people's backgrounds. We had one classmate that worked for the John Oliver Tonight Show, Josie, and we brought all these people, even though they weren't on our team, they would all come to meetings and sort of help us think about how should we make the Kickstarter video? How do we have to be different? Because, we're not a tech product, we're a food product. So people can't try it right there. They can't see how it's going to work. And so we focus a lot on reviews, and so many classmates helped out. They were part of our videos, part of the team really helping out, and it just took a life of its own. And that's when things got real. We were like, all right, we've got revenue, we've got to make sure things fall through. And shortly after that, we ended up raising some money thanks to the UCLA Anderson network and the community, and kept just sort of grinding through.
Wow. And you're also kind of living history, because you were sequentially, you were the first cohort with the Venture Accelerator. So
yes.
Our prior dean, Judy Olian, and Al Osborne and the Price Center, the Venture Accelerator as a nexus point to really give people infrastructure such that entrepreneurship isn't a hope and a dream, but like, where do I go to learn the jargon? Where do I go to put myself in the educational pathway so that I can accelerate? Yeah. So my acquisition of an entrepreneurial point of view, toolkit, head of steam, all of that. So what was it like being in the launch of the Venture Accelerator in parallel to the launch of K-pop?
Oh man, it was crazy. It was, the Accelerator was such a great space, and it opened up right when, as you said, K-pop was really growing, and to have a co-working space and to be next to other startup teams that all had experiences in different things, and to be able to like ping them and be like, hey, we're about to launch on Amazon. You guys have been a top seller on Amazon. Do you have any like feedback or things you could help us out with? That sort of community and that ecosystem is just invaluable. And with Trish and Janet and Elaine and Al Osborne sort of leading that whole thing, I mean, it really, I think, separates the entrepreneurship program to a whole nother level. And we, like you said, we were there our whole first year after graduating. And we, you're at UCLA Anderson, so obviously we had 2 MBA interns. We were able to hire, 3 or 4 undergraduate interns that loved working there, because, they're taking class and then just come right to the internship right afterwards. They didn't have to drive anywhere else in LA. And we really grew. I mean, we built the company here at Anderson. And, during our time there, we ended up closing our first investment round, and then we actually launched an equity crowdfunding campaign on Seed Invest, which was very daunting for us, because we were like, well, we're really putting ourselves out there on this one. We had to work with the SEC, because in a way we were raising money from the public, and our goal was 200. The minimum we had to hit was 200,000, and this was back in last August, so August of 18. And I remember that last day we were at like 170,000. I was like, man, we have less than 24 hours to get to this thing. And again, we found ways through our networks to end up closing the campaign at 217,000, successfully funded it, and just kept going.
Well, now, and for people again who are sort of, I don't even know if I want to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. What are some of the basic parameters? Like, what's the difference of a Kickstarter effort versus the second wave that you?
Yeah, absolutely.
The equity crowdfunding.
Yeah, definitely. The Kickstarter is more of like pre-revenue.
Okay.
Right, and so essentially what we were doing was we were selling our sauces, in April in advance, like a pre-sale. Ended up getting the 40,000. We get that cash to help us, fund our production run, get things out to people, and then. Start moving.
So that's kind of funding a beta.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess, or a beta wave of K-pop.
Exactly.
Food.
Yeah. exactly. And it was just sort of pre-revenue for our one chili sauce at the time. The seed invest campaign was different, where we're actually selling ownership in the company.
Okay.
Or in our stance, we were actually selling our convertible note to all these people so that it would eventually convert into equity in the company. So it was very different. We weren't, giving out sauce. It wasn't like a pre-revenue sale. But that process taught us a lot about the due diligence of going in to raise money, because we had to file our financials with the SEC, had to go through due diligence from Seed Invest, because obviously they don't want to host every single company up there. They only take in 1% of their applicants. So
wow, so you'd already made it through a 1 out of 100 gateway.
And so, we were able to get through that piece, and it was a wild ride. It was a lot that we learned very quickly, and through that, though, we most recently closed an equity, another sort of an add-on to that round, which actually led to our partnership with Strong Ventures, who invested. So now we're a venture-backed company, and so we've kind of gone through all of the phases to this point.
Wow. And all of this in 2 years.
2 years, really, yeah.
Yeah, April of 17.
Yep, exactly.
We just turned June of 19.
Yep.
What a ride.
Yeah, it's been fun. Definitely learned a lot, but I wouldn't have done anything else, and so we've got a lot going on for us, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, and you've come back to campus, or you said you were here the first year,
Yep.
even after you graduated. So, because to me, I think one of the things that I like to suggest to people is don't just think about being an entrepreneur once. Like it turns out that a lot of people are serial entrepreneurs.
Yep.
That once you learn the rhythm of it, and we talked about Brian Thomas in our Clutter interview last year, and I thought it was fascinating when he reflected, he and his co-founder, well, it's just as much work to build $1 million company as it is to build $1 billion company. Why don't we go ahead and think in the B instead of the M, thinking billions instead of millions. And I sat across the podcast interview just going, wow, I wouldn't know to think that, right? And so a lot of it does seem like we're living in this unique moment in history. Everything they tell you about global, disruptive, ongoing technological reinvention, the whole, seems like business school is the best place that I can think of these days to get ready for the fact that change is constant, change is massive, change is here to stay. And now we're going to live to be 108 years old. So what are you going to do, right? Like I don't want to do iBanking and petrochemical in Dallas for the next 80 years, right? I want to reinvent myself. But how do I know how to do that? And like for you, I mean, those are big gates that you've cleared to so far. But even if you hadn't cleared it, you're setting yourself up. You can continue to be an entrepreneur. So that's not exactly Theo's story, but I just want to kind of say that to people who are listening, that I think that's what I'm starting to notice about both current and alumni experiences and continuing aspirations, that there's this longer term takeaway that I'm hearing people tell me that's kind of exciting. Yeah. Right? It's not like, well, if I graduate from Anderson, I haven't launched a company, I missed my. Yeah. No. But at the same time, it's while you're here, if you're interested in that, and you can learn it through AMR, you can learn it through the Global Access Program, you can learn it through BCO. We have the Entrepreneurs Association. Like, there's a whole world, and I'm also just thinking sorry, I'm stealing your interview here for just a second. This is a pitch for MBA education, but like it's almost like even if you're like our historical best feeder company is Boeing. We've got a tremendous track record of success with people coming from Boeing to FEMBA and then going back to Boeing and having incredible, great careers. But you can take the entrepreneurial toolkit that you gain at Anderson and be an entrepreneur and a change agent within Boeing. Like, even that is a good way to go. Absolutely. And we just live in a world where if you don't have that hustle factor, if you're not proactive, the world can move on past you. So and I think that was something that Mike and I learned a lot, and I'm glad you brought that up. Was, again, I've been talking about the Anderson ecosystem, but when we first started, we weren't, Mike's background was in the military. He was in the Army. He's a veteran. I came from investment banking. We have no clue about food. Why are you guys in the food industry? What are you guys? You don't know about marketing, branding, or any of that. And we obviously relied heavily on our classmates, but we relied heavily on reaching out to alumni, and that's where we learned a ton.
learning from others, former entrepreneurs or CEOs that had tried starting up food startups. That's where we developed our strategy. It wasn't in the financial modeling and things like that, but talking to former CEOs through the Anderson Network. Hey, when you guys launched this company, what were you guys thinking about? What were some of the mistakes you guys made? And because if we learn that from them, the mistakes they made, we're able to better understand, okay, that's what we have to be careful about. This is what's driving our strategy. And the things we learned through those conversations were totally invaluable. Nothing that we would have found on Google or through a case or anything like that. This was stuff that you had to talk to these people about. And the fact that these people were willing to share their stories and their failures and mistakes, I mean, that's not the easiest thing to do, right? And the fact that they were willing to share it with us was a huge help to where we are today. And
I want to hear the what's next.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to go all non-linear for a second, because I promised you that I would ask you this, but I forgot. It's an entrepreneurial relationship formation process. I called it an entrepreneurial courtship earlier when we were getting ready and warming up. But what was it like? You had a lot of classmates. You had 360 great classmates, but there was enough chemistry. There was enough kind of shared vision, or how, what, or were you just eating Korean barbecue and say, hey, Mike, let's launch a company? What was that like to kind of suss out a classmate to actually say, hey, you want to steer your career towards, how do you navigate, or what was that like for you all?
You know what? I think what really drew Mike and I together was that we were both Korean Americans, that, second or third generation. And what drew us together, I think, was really the vision that we had for K-pop foods.
Okay.
This idea that we wanted to take Korean food and flavors and introduce it to the world, to America, because that was our way of bringing people together, making people happy, having a good time. And that vision in itself, that core principle, is what kept Mike and I together. Because, as you can expect, two co-founders starting a company, man, in the beginning we used to butt heads all the time. But in the end, we always knew that we were always going to support each other no matter what. So even though we'd be arguing for 6 hours, straight, we always knew we had each other's back. And it's definitely a growing thing, right? Our relationship from when we first started to our relationship now is totally different, just because of how much we know each other. But, a lot of people always ask me, how'd you know Mike was the right guy? And to be honest, I didn't know, right? I knew as much as I could about Mike, but I think what I always knew was that he was always going to support me. I was always going to support him, and that we both had this shared vision for K-pop foods that was consistent. It wasn't like he had a vision of it going this way, I was going that way. That was the core thing that held us together. And since, we've been able to work things out and keep growing and keep pushing, and there's been some crazy times for us, but we've had a lot of fun doing it. But it's kind of like anything else. You never know 100% for sure. You kind of just have to go with your gut and say, I think this is something that'll work out. So.
And you were going with your gut out loud.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really, it's hard almost to encapsulate. And if you're listening to this, how much above and beyond normal MBA work you were doing because you were doing it.
Yeah.
But how many hours would you think, was it 5 hours a week to 10 to 15 to 20? How'd you allocate your time? And
yeah, I want to say I'm glad you brought that up, because there's definitely times in our final quarter of the MBA program, because after Kickstarter, we were doing a bunch of different things, where Mike and I would be in the Accelerator. We would get up, it was pretty much a full-time job. We'd be showing up at the Accelerator at 7, 8 in the morning, and then, work. And then if we had class, you try to prepare for a case and then run up and then come back down and make sure everything's all figured out. But it was funny. There'd be multiple times where him and I would be working on something, and then all of a sudden he'd look up, hey man, did you prep that strategy case? We got to go to that class in 30 minutes. And we'd be like, oh crap, we got to read through this real fast and try to do as much as we can to get this thing right. But for us, it was a full throttle thing. And I think it's because, a lot of our professors and people pushed us. They're like, you want to start a sauce company? Well, let me go see what you guys can actually do. And so that kind of gave us the fire to be like, all right, we got to be different than every other team in the fact that we got to go execute. We can't just do a bunch of financial models. We got to get stuff done, get people on the phone, find suppliers, make, purchases and things like that. When the more and more real it got, you're like, all right, we're in it. So
We are doing this.
yeah, we just got to keep pushing.
I love it. I love it. Well, and the world is full of people who are entrepreneurs because they live in a place where that's all there is.
Yep.
Right? Like the difference, like the gift of the American experiment, this ongoing thing, and the gift of Southern California. And like there's this incredible, I loved Dean Olean said, we're just this epicenter of technology and media and people.
Yep.
That this is a gateway city to the American dream. Like the diversity. We have sitting here in Corn Hall with 36 nationalities on the wall or whatever.
I know, right?
And we were saying earlier, I grew up in East Texas. Everybody was from East Texas. Where I come out here, I'm like, oh my God, I live in the United Nations. And you said second, third generation, and bringing these pathways through, and how could people come from Koreatown to West LA, you're bringing the flavor revolution across town, but it's going to even be bigger than that as you start mailing out your little piggies in the mail, and so it's just it's exciting to see what people can do. But the point I guess I would just make is, it's one thing to be entrepreneurial because you have to and you're trying to survive in many parts of the world.
Yeah.
But if you have that type drive and you place yourself in a resource-rich environment like Anderson, the amplification, the leverage, it's still risky, but it's a different kind of risk because, like you said, you took advantage of all those stories, and those stories were invaluable, and those stories were nothing you could
nothing we
find on Google.
Exactly.
Right? And yet those stories informed you, they informed Mike, and as you started to, and then you've gone through, 39,000 on Kickstarter, X number of people, and then 217,000, and then your next round. And then the confidence and the competence, like, I could do that again if you know how to do it now.
Exactly. And
not that K-pop isn't gonna, who knows what it's gonna blow up into, but you also have a lifetime skill set now that you've given yourself with all this extra hours expended during business school. You've really, to my observation, gone above and beyond.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've gained skill sets from, hiring. Before I never had to think about that. Well, no, I've had to hire, multiple people, understand how to onboard people, think about, hey, maybe this isn't the right fit. We've had to go through things like that from a culture standpoint, from a million different things. Our partnership with Chris O. Chris is a celebrity chef. He's our head of product. He, that whole situation, there wasn't like a playbook that was like, hey, this is how you should approach this situation. No, we had to use our resources here at Anderson. I remember talking to Trish and other professors that I'd taken classes with, and to get their feedback on things, and they were the ones that really helped us design that agreement and form that partnership to make sure we were safe. And Chris has been an absolutely amazing person joining our team, and without him, we wouldn't be where we are today. But definitely the Anderson community helped us through that.
And what was your pitch to him? Hey, I'm Theo. This is Mike. We're the B School guys, and we need some culinary cuisine.
Exactly. We needed some help on the flavor side. But what was funny was a lot of people were like, oh, like how'd you get a hold of him? You email his agent, and honestly, we were like, we have to be different in our approach to him. So I literally reached out to him on Instagram and just shot him a message. Hey, my name's Theo. We co-founded K-Pop Foods. Big Korean food brand. We love your branding. We like all the things you're doing. We just love to see if you have a couple minutes to sync up, see what you think of what we're doing. And that led to a phone call. That led to a meeting, another meeting, another meeting. And next thing you know, he's joining our team, and we're working with him every single day. And it was just an amazing partnership. But
do you remember what employee number he is?
He was employee number 3.
Oh, he's number 3.
He was number 3. So we had interns and part-time, but he was our third full-time employee. So.
Oh my God, that must have been huge too.
Yeah, that was a huge partnership for us. And he's joining our team as head of product. He helped us launch our 3 newest sauces that are doing incredibly well right now for us. And so yeah, it's been great.
And what did he think about grandmother's?
He liked it. Thankfully, he liked it. I was worried.
He wasn't even shining you on.
He was like, no, this is good. He's like, I can see where this can go. And I think, again, what really drew him into us was our vision for it.
Yeah.
I think he understood that that's what kept Mike and I together on so many things, and that if he understood that vision as clearly as Mike and I did, that was going to be the glue to hold us together the entire time through. And he understood it, loved it, and that's what got him to buy it. He understood the potential that we had.
And what kind of cuisine was where had he made his reputation before joining with you all?
Yeah, it was all in Korean food and flavors.
Okay, so it was in the same genre. I should have known that.
Yeah, he started back in 2011 with Soul Sausage, winning the Great American Food Truck Race on Food Network. So that's where I think his personal brand started to build. He opened up Hanjeep in Culver City, Korean barbecue, and then he opened up another restaurant in K-Town called Escala, which is actually Korean Colombian fusion.
Nice.
And when you start to see these things, you're like, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And he'll understand how to incorporate Korean flavors for people to try in the right way, the right setting. And you know, his branding is great for us. He's been able to. He was the one that got us into Coachella, so we were at Coachella this year with our own food booth. He's gotten a partnership with Doghouse, which is a hot dog restaurant, family owned. They've got about 40 locations throughout the U.S. We did a huge thing with them, creating the K-pop burger and giving, for everyone that bought a K-pop burger, we donated $1 to No Kids Hungry.
Wow.
So through Chris, we've done a lot on the biz dev side as well, but his mind and product, I don't think is better than, it's probably one of the best.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, as we start to wind down, like entice people, like, you're CEO, you're co-founder, you're in the driver's seat. Like, how do you gauge the future? Do you work in quarters, in 6 months, in a year? Are you project by project, or how do you go forward from where you are now?
Yeah, a lot of it, obviously some things are very short sprints. We see an opportunity, we're like, this is a massive opportunity. Let's see if we can put 2 weeks to it and sprint this thing through.
Nice.
But I think what Mike and I have started realizing, this is more just as we take a step back sometimes and just try to think about how we've been operating, taking ourselves out of the day-to-day, we started realizing that we should take, a more long-term view.
Okay.
Right? So thinking about next year, maybe 3 months out, 6 months out, 1 year out, instead of always these short sprints that you can sometimes hurt companies because you just constantly, you don't know where you're going really. And for
You're
us,
going fast. But
yeah, you're moving, but where are you guys moving? Are you just trying to grow revenues, but you're spending all your money in marketing, so you're not making a profit, or what's happening? And for us, again, this came through our conversations with alumni that had started companies, was the big focus for us was in retail. Obviously, as a consumer product company, we knew we wanted to grow online. We wanted to, by doing it that way, we can control our cash flow, we can build a brand, get our marketing right, and introduce the right portfolio of products to the market without going too fast. Now that we're at a certain point, we're now breaking into retail, so we're about to launch with Bristol Farms throughout Southern California. We're working with 3 and 4 potential other retailers that we're still negotiating right now, but retail is the next big frontier, and hopefully, in 2 years, you'll see us at Costco and things like that, and we'll keep coming out with some new products, maybe a ramen product, maybe some rice bowls and some new stuff. But we've got a lot of stuff cooking, and we're really excited about it.
Literally cooking. Yes, yeah. Well, Theo, this has really been great, and again, I appreciate Trish and Will and the team at the Venture Accelerator for introducing us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd heard about you sort of second. It's a cool name, K-pop, and I hear secondhand about alumni success stories. But this has really been an honor and a pleasure to get to meet. I'd love to get you at Palooza in the future. Maybe we could do a vendor stand and showcase your product. Anything else, like? I guess kind of as we wrap up, either shout outs to faculty, shout outs to obviously Mike or classmates, or you've really, I think, done a tremendous job of just speaking to one person's successful Anderson journey. Or the last thing I like to ask people is just like work habits, right? Like if there's something that you've learned that's really helping you dance with, because we live in a crazy moment in history, and you got to dance with all that and still be successful. So any kind of shout outs or best practices, anything you'd want to share to anybody who happens to be listening?
No, absolutely. The big shout out that Mike and I always talk back to is Elaine Hagan and the Price Center. They've been there for us since the get-go. And what's interesting is that even though we were doing all this at Anderson, I never really started to build that relationship with the Price Center and Elaine and Al Osborne until probably after Kickstarter. So our final quarter at school was when I started really saying how involved and what Elaine and Al were trying to build here at UCLA Anderson to separate us from the other schools. And that relationship has led to so much for us, understanding how much work that they put into building the Accelerator. They think about the teams that they're bringing on and how they want to create this entrepreneurship culture here at Anderson. And without them, it's, I don't know where it would be, right? I don't even know if we would have started K-Pop Foods without that. And so, I want to give a huge shout out to them and to all the companies that are coming up. I was just at the, expo for the Accelerator showcase last week, and there's some amazing companies out there. There's a mezcal drink company. There's like an online PowerPoint company that they're, all based in the cloud that team's working on. It's awesome to see that spirit, and I hope, it continues to grow and continues to develop, and hopefully, we'll see a ton of other success stories come pretty quickly here.
Yeah, I think it's coming. Yeah, and you were the first cohort, so
Yeah.
you're sort of the
Yeah.
the path blazing trailblazer there.
Yeah.
And then last thing, you like the a CEO's work habit. I have a meme that I give to entering fully employed MBA students. Be CEO of your own life. Right, and you surround yourself with smart people. Surround yourself with people who will keep you going on when you have a bad day, right? Because life has,
yeah, of course.
storms. there are storms and there are snakes in the grass. And but any work habit you have now that maybe you didn't have when you started that, that you really like. Man, it's good that I do this. Either prioritizing or.
Yeah, definitely on the prioritizing side, and it's not so much just. Before as an analyst or when I was working for someone else, I'm like, okay, I'm the manager of finance. This is kind of my thing. Now as the CEO, I have to think about culture, hiring, the marketing, overviewing the marketing strategy, finance. There's so many different things, and I feel like it's easy to get overwhelmed. And you got to find, what works best for you. I think every entrepreneur is different. For me, I'm an early morning person, so I'm up at 5 in the morning, and from 5 to like 8 or 9 is when it's quiet and I can actually think through, like, all right, this project needs to be a priority. This is what what I'd like for things to look like 6, 12 months out. And so for some people, that's late at night. Some people love to work from 10 p.m. till 2 in the morning. But I think it's important for you to know things about yourself that you're going to need in order to make it through and not, burn out. Whether it's working out for 2 hours a day, just to clear your head from everything. But other than that, take things in stride. You try to learn and always improve, and again, look for mentors, look for people to give you advice on how to handle that next step. And I think that's one thing that Chris and I are always looking for is new mentors, people to connect with, and people that have been there before. Because again, they share a lot more, and you're going to learn a lot more from their stories and what they had to go through than anything else. So.
Well, yeah, I love that proactive nature of your journey because we as any top tier school says, we have an incredible alumni network, and we have all the sparkly examples of the names. And you got to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And you don't probably start with the most famous alumni. You probably start with the kind of the good middle, strong middle.
Exactly.
But you picked up the phone and you did that a lot, and you did it together and you did it as a team, and you asked, hey, can I get on your calendar?
Yep, exactly. And you want to make sure you're being wary of their time too, and make sure that it's relevant and that you have something that it's not just an idea at this point. If I'm trying to get a hold of a CEO, he's got a million things going on. I want to make sure that there's a real point to that meeting or why I'm reaching out to him. And without that, I don't think Mike and I would be here either. So we've been able to get there, and we're always looking for ways to share our knowledge with people as well. So.
And if people want to follow you, if they want to order some product, where do we point people? Where do they go?
Follow us on K-Pop Foods, at K-Pop Foods on Instagram. All of our sauces and everything are available on our website, kpopfoods.com, and on Amazon. And now, if you're in Southern California, you can find us at Bristol Farms. So.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. So, don't just know about K-Pop.
Yeah.
Savor it, taste it. There's 4 flavors now, right?
4 different sauces and a line of seaweed snacks.
Very good. Oh, my kids love seaweed snacks. All right. Well, everyone, this has been Theo Lee, class of 2017 here from UCLA Anderson, CEO and co-founder of K-Pop Foods. And, it's fun to follow. It's going to be great to see what happens the next couple of years for you all.
Yeah, thank you again for having me, and I hope to see some more entrepreneurs and startups come out of Anderson.
I think you've blazed a great trail. Thank you very much, Theo.
All right, thank you.